Welcome everyone back to the Philippines. This time we are in Coron. Bejan and I are actually getting our advanced open water certification in Coron, which is one of the premier diving sites in the world, most famous for its wrecks. And that is why we wanted to get our advanced open water so that we can dive these wrecks. So we'll be doing 5 wrecks for the certification itself and an additional fun dive. Let's get into it. Our first day of diving was phenomenal. It's the first time both of us have done wrecks, but in order to train for the wreck diving, we needed to do some exercise first as part of our advanced certification. So we did a dive at Malpadan Reef, and then we also did 2 more wreck dives after the reef dive. We dived with a really incredible dive shop called Reggae Dive Center, and they're in the center of Coron. Very reliable, highly recommend. Dive 2 was our first wreck dive, and it was just simply amazing. We dived the merchant ship Teru Maru. It was sunk during World War II, and it had overall length about 35 meters and a beam of 7 meters. It was really cool to go around the ship, and we saw a number of fish, but really the highlights were this flatworm and red snapper, but unfortunately I didn't quite get it on the camera. Next up for dive 3, we have the Morazan Maru, which was a Japanese supply ship that was sunk also in World War II. This was a fascinating dive. It wasn't very deep, only 12 to 26 meters, so we did some exercises in the beginning, but we actually had more free time on this particular dive to explore the wreck. And it was fascinating because the ship was huge. It was about 93 meters and architecturally very, very interesting. And because it was sunk so long ago, it had an enormous supply of marine life growing on top of it. And so, yeah, we did a lot of exploration and it was so much fun. Because this was only our second wreck dive, we didn't really have the courage to do full-on penetration into the wreck. But we did do some very light penetration where you can zoom in and out of the structure, as you can see here, and that was really fun. It was like going for a tunnel but underwater, and with so much more to see because there was just huge schools of fish all around. And I don't know, there is something about having a very human structure underwater that is interesting because you don't think about it as something that has human presence. As I was saying, there was some really huge schools of fish around on this wreck dive. There were these fin fish, no idea what they called, but also these huge schools of yellowfish, and they were everywhere. It was really fun to swim all around them, and the reef life was just so healthy with huge corals all around. Definitely enjoyed all of those sides. Besides from the multiple huge schools of fish, we also had some really great individual sightings. So this one is a pufferfish, which is venomous, and it has these spines that stick out when it inflates, a little bit like a pufferfish, but it's actually from a different family of fish to the pufferfish. It was really, really fun watching it swim around and eat. And yeah, I think I was there for a whole minute just looking at this porcupine fish. Then we saw this very graceful lionfish swimming around. Unlike the Caribbean, the lionfish is native to the Philippines. And of course, I am a sucker for a good Nemo sighting. So here we are with Nemo defending his live coral. That is it for dive day 1, and we learned a lot from advanced open water certification. That's why we weren't filming that much, and now we leave you to enjoy the rest of the scenery. It is now day 2 of scuba diving. We dived 3 wrecks on this day, and I'm so excited to show you because we saw a lot. Before we get into that, I want to jump into the logistics. So for the advanced open water course, it was 2 days of diving and 5 dives. As I said, I added 1 more for a fun dive. The required adventure dives are deep dives, navigation, and peak performance buoyancy. Those are all mandatory, and then you can choose 2 more. We did a fish identification course and a wreck adventure dive. Highly recommend both of them. It was around 18,000 pesos, which is $308 USD, one of the cheapest that we have seen out there. So highly recommend diving with Reggae Dive Center. As I said, they were incredible in terms of the equipment they provide. It was all very new and modern, safe. The guide and our teacher was phenomenal. We learned a lot from him. And lastly, included a delicious lunch, which is, you can't argue with that. We loved every moment of our course in Philippines and highly, highly recommend. Our 4th dive was the Akitsushima, a Japanese Navy ship that was sunk during World War II. Specifically, I think it was a seaplane tender, and we went through the communication tower and saw a lot of features that were typical of naval ships. The depth was around 22 to 36 meters, and the length of the ship was 118 meters. One of the coolest features we saw was a machine gun, and it was very recognizable. We were down underwater for about 35 minutes with a depth of 33 meters and saw so much, and I'm going to show you in a minute. I promised you guys interesting sea life, and here it is. Our guide found 2 flat-headed crocodile fish and a stonefish. They are from the same order of family, but the crocodile fish is not venomous, whereas the stonefish is highly venomous. They are both ambush predators, and they are very, very good as master of disguise. In addition, both of them are very stealthy hunters because of their camouflage and have this prehistoric appearance. Another aspect that I love about the dive was that there were plenty big schools of fish. And for whatever reason, I found that the coral fish here is a bit bigger than usual, maybe because there are more places to hide. You might be wondering what on earth you're looking for here, and it's actually the blue dragon nudibranch, which is a type of sea slug that lives in the pelagic zone. Lastly, on dive 4, we spotted another stonefish. I heard that they are one of the most venomous fish in the world, with 13 dorsal fins that have toxins. And okay, this completes our dive 4. On to the next one. For our 5th dive, we are at the Okikawa Maru, which was a Japanese oil tanker in World War II that was sunk. It has a depth of around 10 to 26 meters and the biggest wreck in the Coron area with a length of 160 meters. We're doing the fish identification course here, which is why Bejan has his whiteboard out. This was an amazing dive because the ship was so big that we just spent a lot of time exploring the architecture and the structural components. We were down there for about 41 minutes with a maximum depth of 22 meters. Given we've done a few wrecks now, we were a bit more comfortable. So this round we were brave enough to do a bit of penetration, and this is us going into the engine room. Luckily for us, this was not a difficult penetration, and as you can see, there's still a lot of light. But in areas where there is no light, it's just complete darkness unless you have your torch shining on it. So definitely makes you appreciate wreck diving a bit more. In terms of marine life, it was fantastic. Visibility was a bit low, but what we saw was great. So here is a pufferfish. I think it might be a porcupine fish. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I always love a good Nemo sighting, and this live coral had 3 of them. They were just pecking at it. It was fascinating to watch. I spy my little eyes. What are we looking at here? It took me a little while to figure out what it was because it was so well camouflaged, but this is another flat-headed crocodile fish. That's the end of dive 5. On to our last one. Okay guys, don't ever say I don't spoil you because I have saved the best for last in terms of marine life. We are now dive 6 at the Lusong Gunboat, and it has a depth about 17-18 meters maximum, and we were down there for 50 minutes, and the boat itself was about 135 meters long. Let's get into it. First up is this group of nudibranchs, and there were actually more of them, but I only caught 3 on camera. There are around 200 species of nudibranchs in Philippines. Next up is a triggerfish, which you'll see momentarily, and it's known as a very aggressive fish. This one is one of my favorites. It's an electric clam. Its light is created by tiny silica spheres in its mantle that reflects ambient light. This is another flat-headed crocodile fish being camouflaged once again. This is another game of I Spy My Little Eyes. This creature is pretty small though, so I don't blame you if you can't see it, but it's another nudibranch. And I just love finding them. They're so small, colorful, and weird looking. I definitely want to learn more about them and be better at spotting them in the future. We end our last dive with this pair of crocodile fish and some more footage of the ocean without me speaking. Join us for our next video with Coron island hopping.